Two, one. We are live. Hello and welcome to wealthlessons.club, a podcast channel where we talk to entrepreneurs from all over the world who have built and run successful businesses. And today it's an honor and privilege for me to have with me Alexandre Stern, who is a serial entrepreneur. Alexandra, he built and sold Universe Sign a long time ago, after which he had a few gigs. He joined McKinsey as a strategy consultant, operating partner with I&S Advisor. He has been mentor to a few startup accelerators. And what caught my attention was he's now the founder and president of Odomo. I just signed up your your survey that you sent out on LinkedIn, and I filled in my inputs as well. And I usually am very curious to talk about to talk with entrepreneurs who are in their second venture because they have learned a lot from their first venture. And is the model repeatable? Is this something that they can take a they can that the chances of succeeding in a second business improves drastically? Is the confidence much higher and stuff like that? So I like to dabble on all these topics, and that's exactly why I requested Alex to be a guest on my podcast. I met Alex in our angel investor community, which I'm still a very new member. It's called Upscalers. It's filled with very fascinating entrepreneurs and investors from mostly from Europe, but also from outside Europe. And that's why I'm very thankful that Alex agreed to have a conversation with me. So, Alex, before we jump in, I would like to know a little bit about your upbringing. Maybe you can share with us what's your upbringing like. Where were you born? Which country was it? And were you always wired to become an entrepreneur, or was it an accidental happenstance for you?
Okay. So first of all, thanks for inviting me. Um, this first question, my answer is going to be very boring because I was born in Paris. I've lived my entire life in Paris, and my parents they are more of the intellectual type. So we were supposed to do long studies, my brother and I, but we are not supposed to go into business because my both my parents are academics, so they are much more into bringing some reflection to the world and teaching and researching. And I'm actually the first one who decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So that was very unusual for the family. And actually, I wanted to launch a company even before I graduated. So during my studies in business school in France, when I was 20 something, I started looking at business opportunities. I even launched my first company while I was still in business school. And this is actually the company that eventually became Universign. But we started it as a small consulting gig while I was in business school.
But what were your influences? Like, what made you take the plunge into entrepreneurship? Like, did you have friends who were entrepreneurs? Did you have mentors? Like, how was it?
No, at that time it was very unusual. You know, if you did a survey at that time, who wants to be an entrepreneur at my school, maybe two or three people would raise their hands. Now it's 80% of the class. So at that time, it was really unique, and not a lot of friends from my generation actually launched their own business because at that time it was not that exciting. There was very little funding available. We did not even talk about exits, but I wanted to create something. For me, it was the excitement of building something from scratch.
Right. Was is building companies then, was it easier or today? And when I say easier, I don't mean access to capital. I mean less competition. So maybe since you are only one of three, so that means there is less competition in the market as well, right? So there is easy opportunities. So do you think that building businesses, say 15 years ago, was easier?
No, I would say it's much easier now because 15 years ago there were a lot of incumbents like traditional businesses, and people were kind of suspicious of startups. It's just like
Mhm.
it was small companies. People didn't really understand what they were doing. People were not trusting that they would still be around in 3, 5, 10 years. Uh, so no, the ecosystem is much easier now. And of
Got
course,
it.
the funding makes a big difference, but it's not only that. It's also, are people ready to work with a startup? Now, a lot of companies, big and small, are ready to do that. Back then, it was not that easy.
Got it. So tell us. So then you were just an exception. Okay. How did the idea germinate for Universign? Like, what was the triggering point where you saw an opportunity for Universign? Maybe you explain what Universign
Yeah.
was.
So we started the company by chance because my brother was graduating at that time. He was a cryptography researcher, and I was just fresh out of business school. So we decided, okay, let's launch a business together. And we did not really have any business idea, so we started to just do some consulting, high-end consulting for um, security, confidentiality, stuff like that. And at some point, we realized that a lot of customers had the same issues regarding digital signature. So gradually, we moved from being a kind of consultancy practice to being a software development house, and eventually we became a software publisher and a digital signature pure player.
But digital signature only caught up recently, right? I mean, were you like one of those very early entrants into this, and by
Yeah,
a huge margin? Because digital signatures, in fact, after the COVID, there are many digital signature companies
yeah.
which whose business boomed a lot. Maybe why don't you tell us about the ecosystem then?
So that's teach me a very good lesson about time to market, and maybe we'll come back to that because when we first launched our digital signature solution, we were the first one. The legal framework was there, but nobody was really interested. It took about 5 to 6 years to get our first customers for digital signature. So it means in the meanwhile, we did a lot of other stuff just to get enough revenues so that the company could continue. At that time, it was about 12, 15 people. Um, and eventually the market picked up. It started around 2007. And after that, it was much easier because we had the technology. We did not have much competition because all the competition had died out, waiting for the market to start.
Hmm.
And so that's what made our first step of development possible.
Got it. And did you like invest a lot of time in building your, I'm sure at that time there was no concept of MVP. Did you fully build your product, or what was the initial ideas then? How did
Yeah,
you
we
go to
tried.
market?
At that time, there was very little funding available, so we tried to kind of co-develop the product with our first clients. The
Hmm.
first clients we got, it was we had a telecom operator who was really eager to do something with us, so they kind of uh, developed with us, and they had there was the first license owner. Yeah, so that was the first few years, and after that, it really became a product. But initially, it was kind of proof of concept.
Got it. So you found somebody to work with, and you made a pitch to them that, hey, you know what, this might solve your
Yeah,
problems,
yeah,
and then they agreed and took a bet on you. Is that how it is?
yeah. They invested a little bit for the proof of concept, and then when we proved it was successful, they started paying licenses.
Got it. Excellent. And then how long did it take for you to scale this, and when did you decide that, okay, this is good enough and we would like to sell
Yeah,
this? Did you sell it? Was it acquired? How was it?
yeah. It was sold last year, and at some point we realized that to grow our company, it was still small, like 20, 25 people. And in the US, there was this company called DocuSign that was growing, of course, much faster because they had access to capital and access to a big market. So we decided we need more funds because we need to grow faster. And that's
Hmm.
when we looked for investors, and we had a VC fund coming to our capital. And of course, when you get VC funding, your time frame, it means that the company has to be sold, or at least you have to offer a liquidative
Got it.
value at some point within
Got
the next 5 to 7 years. And
got
that's
it.
what happened. So 7 years later, there was this option on the table: either we sell or we do something where the earlier investors can cash out. And there was a deal on the table that was good, so we took it.
Got it. A company like DocuSign or UniverSign, mostly digital signatures, it's all about market capture. No, there is no competitive mode that one digital signature player can be a better solution than the others, right? Is that true, or there can be a
So
competitive mode?
there's a lot of differences. Most of the clients, they can't see it, and they don't really care usually because it does the work. But when there will be litigation based on digital signature, it will not be the same. The way you do it, the way the keys are stored, the way you store for a very long time, all the proofs. We have to store proofs for more than 100 years because, if you sign, for example, a life insurance contract,
Hmm.
that when you die, we have to check who was the beneficial owner, and
Got it.
it can be in 50 or 70 years time.
I see. Okay. So the time frame is important because you never know who
When
takes up
you need the proof,
these.
yeah, you need to retrieve a proof, and it has legal value, and it has to
Got
be.
it. Got it. Okay. So the security aspect of it sometimes is not evident on the surface level,
Yeah.
but it is embedded into the product. Okay, that is the differentiator. All right. And when was it that you sold, and how big was it when you sold it? Like how many customers and how many countries maybe?
The customer numbers were in the thousands.
Right.
When we sold, we were the French market leader.
Got it.
We were probably the largest pure player in Europe because all the other pure players, they had already been acquired, mostly by Americans.
Right.
So yeah, it was one of the very few companies still on the market for M&A.
Got it. When you say pure player in a region, a company like Digital Signature will not have a competitive advantage geographically. No, it is like you are competing with almost every player in anywhere around the world. Am I right, or
Not
does it have a?
really. There's a matter of trust, and a lot of companies, and it's even more true for governments. They don't
I
want to trust the foreign players. So that also made it difficult for us to gain market share abroad because
got it.
basically there was one big player in Germany, one in Spain, one in France.
Hmm.
So yeah, the market was quite fragmented in Europe compared to DocuSign, that was really the big American player.
Got it. And you sold it when last year?
Yeah,
And who was it? Like, did you sell it to a private equity, or did you sell it to a
yeah,
competitor?
that's public. We sold to private equity firm.
Ah, okay, you sold to private equity. And how many employees were there when you sold it?
It was about 80 something, 85.
Wow. And the numbers are not public, isn't it?
No, we can't tell much more, but you can imagine a company like that. It was profitable, and it was growing very fast.
Got it. And usually, how do you? I mean, this is a question that I always ask entrepreneurs. How do you come up with a good selling price? Like, say, for example, you have X hundred X million revenues for a year that you are making, and you want to sell. Are there any rules of thumb or any guiding principles on how you
No,
mark
it's
your price?
really of offer and demand, and the whole process, it's outsourced to a bank, and the bank is looking for the highest bidder. Uh,
Okay, bank looks for a highest bidder. Okay, but usually, but I'm sure there must be a trends, right? So when say you're making, say, you're a small company and you're making say 10 million revenues every year, and
yeah, basically there is this notion of ARR,
yes,
um, uh, um,
annual recurring revenue.
recurrent revenues, and it's mostly the negotiation. It's mostly based on the multiple of the annual revenue, so it can range depending on the company anywhere between 2 or 3 up to 20 or 30. So there's a huge range, and there it's really demand and offer.
So 2 to 20 is a huge margin. Okay,
Yeah, 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 it is.
uh, is there any?
The faster you grow, the closer it is to a very high value.
I see.
If the company starts to, the curve start to flattens,
I
and
see.
the
Got it.
number goes down.
Got it. Got it. So if you have not captured market, but you're growing fast and you're willing to sell, and there is enough potential to grow further, then you get a higher bid.
Yeah.
But if you have already saturated, got it. That's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, excellent. And then you sell your company, and you ran this company for how many years, if I may ask, Alex?
Uh, from the moment I started in business school to the moment I sold, it was about 20 years. But
20 years. Wow.
it was a lot of different steps. When I was in business school, it was just a side gig. Then we started as a consultancy. Then it became a software house. So yeah, the whole story was 20 years.
And how did you feel selling this company? Was it a relief where you did you want to continue, or did you sell out of like because of this? I mean, of course, if there is an
Yeah.
investor, you need a good exit and stuff like that. What was going on in your mind? Like,
We looked at two options. We did something with the bank that was working with us called dual track. And dual track, it means either they look for buyers or they look for investors. So if we had found another deal where people would have invested, I don't know, something like 20, 30 million into the company, and then we would have started again for another 3 or 4 years, that would have been an option. But when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be also careful about the cycles, because there are some periods of time where it's best to exit. And I think the valuations last year and still earlier this year were really high, and now it has already started to come down. So it's important to try and sell at a peak. And
what could you explain this? What do you mean by cycles?
well, the valuations, I guess you've noticed that in the last 6 months, tech valuations have started going down in the Nasdaq, and it
Yes,
will trickle down to private equity later rounds.
got it.
And so yeah, the value of the companies, there was this kind of bubble, and I think it was a smart move to sell at the peak of the bubble.
Got it. And then how do you decide whether you want to get another investor, or you want to sell it off
That
with
would have been based on the offers we got, and
Mhm.
we were talking to a lot of different people, and the people would bid the highest number. They wanted to buy 100%. So we said okay.
Got it. I'm just trying to understand, if you are already profitable and doing well, what would the investment would help in introducing a new product,
Yeah,
or
there were a lot
sorry,
of options on the table. It could have been to acquire some of our competitors.
got it.
I think at this point the European market starts to consolidate, so it was maybe a good move to get some more equity by competitors in other country and try to do a European build-up.
Which otherwise, without this money infused, you cannot do it with your own revenues,
You're
isn't
not
it?
profitable enough because the companies you want to acquire, they're also quite expensive,
Got
but
it.
they're also growing. So no, at some point you need money and a lot of it.
Got it. But in hindsight, would you have preferred to continue running the company with investors, or are you good with a 20-year run and start
No, I'm
something?
good. My brother, who was the co-founder with me, is still running it.
Right.
So he's doing this for the next probably 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know. It depends when
Got it.
the next liquidity event happens.
Got it.
But I was already doing all the stuff, and I was happy to just catch up.
Yeah, I have also seen that when you sell, you need to be part of the management team for a couple of years. It's called golden handcuff, I think.
Yeah, usually, yeah, in the deal, you need to stay a couple of years. So that's what my brother negotiated.
Got it.
Uh, and then there is this kind of, yeah, there is an equity bonus at the end if it goes well.
Got it. And this happens because you know the business, and that's why you should support the business for some years.
Yeah, it's quite tricky, to just buy a company and expect that it will run without the founders the way it did before.
But the founders could also lose motivation. No? I'm not saying you,
Yeah,
your
you know,
brother might lose. Okay.
that's that's very common, and actually, a lot of friends of mine, after they sold, they lost the motivation. So usually, the it doesn't really work well, this
Hmm.
period of a couple of years, and people try to reduce it to the minimum, like 12 months, sometimes 6 months.
Got
Usually,
it.
it's up to 2 years or more, but it's very rare that people would actually stay for the long run.
Got it. In fact, I've seen so many people, they wait for this
Yeah,
duration to end.
exactly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I learned a lot here. Okay, good. So a founder runs a company for 20 years and then sells it off. What's going in the mind then? Want to take a few years break, or you want to jump into your next thing? What happens? I'm sure it is a very individual based question. But what was your state of mind after you? So did you
Yeah,
go on a long holiday or something, or
I
how was
was
it?
already looking for my next project. I'm going to do things a bit differently because I want to be the president, and I don't want to be the CEO for the next company, which means that I want to be involved in the business on a daily basis, but I don't want to run it, to manage all the stuff. So it's a kind of a step back, compared to being a hands-on entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Um, and also, it's you get some freedom when you cash out, and you can do some stuff you want to enjoy. I'm doing something this year because I really wanted to go to the South Pole. So there's this group taking me to the South Pole in December.
Hmm.
I'm doing some investment, especially for startups, because it's an ecosystem I know well. And also, you know I want to stay in the business, because if you stop working for a couple of years, I think you no longer understand what's going on. So I had this project that I wanted to launch for quite a while, and the market, the momentum was really good, because this American company doing the same thing, they started growing really exponentially.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I brought the team together, and now we're in the starting blocks, and we are launching the company.
So when you say American company, are you talking about Airbnb?
No, we're talking about Picasso. Picasso, it's been very successful in the last 12, 15 months. It started from scratch. It's already valued 1.4 billion. And what they do is they offer a service where you can buy a second house with other people that you don't know. And that means that if you invest, for example, 250,000 euro, you get a house that's worth 2 million. And of course,
Oh, nice.
you cannot use it all the time. You can use it like 45 days a year, but still, it's a very exciting way to own a second house, in my opinion.
Yeah, so co-ownership is really exciting. Yes, because you can afford something expensive
Yeah.
on a discount. However, does it make money, or it is just owning a house? Like there is no revenue potential there, right?
Oh, it's not. People don't invest in this kind of schemes for the revenues.
Right.
It's for enjoyment. So it's really something you put. It means you already have some money. You put some aside in this house, and you're gonna come and enjoy with your friends, family, and so on.
Got it. Got it. And okay. And Picasso is popular. Is it doing good?
It started really, yeah, it started really well in the US, and I've had this idea for the last 10 years. I wanted to do something like that, and looking at what Picasso was doing, I said, okay, now is the time to do it, and so we're doing it, and we're actually launching next week.
Lovely. I have always had this question in mind on when you are investing into a new business. Like, okay, then you first of all you are spending your next say 5-10 years into this, and I'm sure as an entrepreneur you have 1,000 ideas in your head, right? Because as an entrepreneur you can never run out of ideas. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I still have lots of ideas. How do you look at a business saying that this is the one thing that I want to invest my next 5-10 years out of these 100 options that you have?
I think you don't have a single answer to that. I'm more of a creative guy, and I want to do something exciting. So I kind of jump into an idea and try it out. My co-founder, for example, is more analytical, and that's why we did this little survey that you kindly replied to.
Oh, I
Uh,
was very impressed with the survey because I thought, somebody is actually doing due
yeah,
diligence in
thank
terms
you.
of
And
research.
actually, we got a lot of very useful market insights. We know the percentage of the people who are actually interested in this kind of co-owning co-owning a house. We have a lot of data on how much they would be ready to invest, where they would like to invest at the seaside or in the mountains or in cities. So that's really invaluable, and it will help us for the next steps. Because right now we want to do the first two properties this year.
Got it. Um, I will come to this. My question is, the second time founders, when you build something again, especially if you have had a good exit, do you start with a lot of confidence? Do you start with a lot of what's going in your mind?
I
Like, hey,
think you learn a lot from all the mistakes you did as an entrepreneur.
right.
And the biggest mistake we did was we did not look at the time to market at all. Having this company that was doing something else for 6 years just because the market had not started yet, that was a huge drawback. Um, so that's what I'm doing differently for this company because the market is really hot for this kind of services.
Right.
Um, and also, after having worked for 20 years, you know what you're good at, and
Mm.
so I focus on what I'm good at, and my co-founders do the same. And when you put the team together, you have to make sure that all the pieces of the puzzle they come together, and that's something you don't always look at when you're launching your first venture.
So, what are you good at?
I'm good at strategy. I'm good at raising funds. I have this vision that in 10 years this company is going to do like it's going to be this big, it's going to do this kind of services, and I'm going to need that amount of monies, and I'm looking for this type of investors. And I go and see them, and usually uh, all the fundings I looked for in my life as an entrepreneur, I managed to get it more or less at the valuation I had in mind. So this is now what I've been doing for the last 20 years, and I've learned how to do it. So
And what does it take to be able to raise funds? Like, what should you be good at to influence people to raise money?
you know, especially when you're doing pre-seed, which is really the first steps of your company, and you don't generate €1 of revenue, you're telling a story. So
Hmm.
the story, it has to be exciting, because if it's not exciting, nobody's going to buy it, and it has to be credible. So the whole point is how do you make your story sexy and credible? The credibility, I think, you earn uh, by what you've done before, and also, by this kind of detail, the market survey that we did, we're bringing this at the table with the investors, saying, okay, we had 100 response, it says this and that. So you earn this kind of credibility, and then the sexiness, it's how much the market is growing, how do you want to execute, and at the end of the day, what kind of exit people can expect in 5 to 7 years.
So what you're saying is, with zero revenues at the pre-seed, just with the power of an idea, if you are credible and if you are able to to tell that story convincingly, you should be able to raise money from anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the same as pitching a story for a movie at Hollywood. You have to access the right people. You don't have a lot of time, and you have to catch their interest. And they say, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I was always told that, try to get some traction in terms of customer acquisition before you can sell. But it seems
Yeah,
like what you.
that's better. But it depends which step you're on. You have the pre-seed, you have the seed, you have Series A. When you're looking for money and you're just starting and you can't really bootstrap to yourself, then you need to tell a really compelling story.
Got it. But you should. Do you think one should avoid getting money at pre-seed, especially because you have to give away a lot from your startup to.
Yeah, it all depends. It all depends on how fast you need to go. It depends on the competition. Raising money, it's not a it's a mean to an end. I mean, you can build a super successful company and you've never raised any money just because
Hmm.
you go on organically and it's
Yes.
cool. But in some environment, especially right now that there's a lot of money available, if all your competitors are raising 10 million and you're raising one or two, you can't do the same. I mean, at some point, uh,
Got it.
you need to invest to keep in the track.
Got it. Got it. Excellent. You talked about founders. How did you decide who should your next founder be for your next venture?
That was tricky. It took me like more than 6 months to find the right person. I interviewed more than 80 different potential founders.
80.
Yeah, 80. And at the end, there was a very short list of like 3, 4 names. And it was un- until 2, 3 weeks, I did not know who my co founder was going to be. And now we found each other and we started working together, and it was amazing. And so we found the first two members of the team.
And you found them in within France or.
My co-founder is based in Amsterdam,
I see.
but he's a guy I knew from quite a long time. But we are not we are a bit lost touch, and we were connected on this project.
So out of those 80 people, you eventually landed with a co-founder whom you knew long back. So is that a good rule of thumb that usually you fall back upon people that you have known for long? Is that something that
That's a
works?
good question. I think a lot of founding teams, it's people that already know each other from, I don't know, their previous work experiences and so on.
Hmm.
But I also know people that launch companies and they just they just meet for the project because they have different skills and the skills match really well together. So I don't think there's a rule, but eventually, for me, it was someone I've known for like more than 15 years.
It makes things easier, no? I mean, even if you have known somebody.
Well, I think there again, there are a lot of different scenarios. Um, working with people that you really know very well, like they're your friends, maybe it's not always the best idea. Uh, and people you don't know at all, it's maybe not the best idea either. So something in between, people that you know the value they have,
Right.
you know what they can bring to the table, but at the same time, you're not best friends and you're not spending vacation together because I mean, the projects you're doing, it's work and it has to be really, you need to be focused on something that's a work project.
Got it. So you said that you are good with strategy and raising fund and stuff like that. Were you looking for founders who had complementary strengths?
Yeah,
Then you.
absolutely. I was looking for someone who was good at managing people, uh,
Hmm.
and fine tuning all the details that I no longer want to be involved in.
Right.
The back office, because what we're doing for this project is, it looks easy, but it's kind of tricky because when you put 8 people co-owning the same house, you have to think about all the things that can go wrong, and you have to really manage all the things very carefully.
Got it. Excellent. I think I got to understand. Um, cool. So how do you? So where did you get these? Like when you said 80 co-founders, that's a lot. That means you had access to all
Yeah,
these.
I
Where
you
did.
know I just published something on LinkedIn saying that I was looking for a co-founder for my next project. I received like 40 answers in the next 2 hours.
Oh wow.
And I just talked to people. I'm a member of a couple of entrepreneurship clubs. I just talk to people. You want to look at this project? People who had exited or people who are looking for a new project, stuff like that.
So are these people like are sitting idle waiting for a co-founder opportunity? Like I mean, how does it happen that you get
Well,
40?
sometimes people are either in a job and you know that they are looking for something
Got it.
else,
Got it. Okay.
or people who have sold their previous company, and
Got it.
usually they take 1 year off and look at various ideas before they jump again into entrepreneurship.
Got it. And you were looking for somebody who had already built a business or something of that sort?
No,
Or
no, I was just looking for the skills. Someone who could manage the people, be a good manager, and someone who goes fast. Smart guy who goes fast, guy or girl, but
got
someone who's fast because that's the way I work. It has to be really fast, and I like to work with smart people. So
excellent. And is the founder, was it also a technical person that you were looking for, or no?
we're still looking for a technical person in
Got it.
real estate, but right now we decided to start the company, the two of us, and we will add a third founder maybe at some point.
Got it. So you looked at, we looked at this, the US success story, and then your idea was to replicate this because you thought that this is a booming market, and that's how you jumped. You got your own data sets, you did your research, and you thought there is no such a player in Europe, and you wanted to acquire that space. Is that how it was in your mind?
Yeah, it was a bit more complicated. Can you excuse me for just 1 minute? I need to take the call. Can we just make a little pause?
Sure. So for all the audience here, Alex is going to get some
Be right
stuff
back.
picked. He'll be back in a couple of minutes, and in the meantime, I will go on a I'll start blabbering something. Or
Oui.
okay, very very fascinating interview, this one. So Alex, as I said, I met him on this angel investor community. It's called Upscalers, started by two very very highly motivated individuals. And yeah, that's how when I came to know of Alex's story, I reached out to him, and I have been enjoying every bit of this interview. One of my best interviews, because Alex is sharing stories from his own experiences. Very very fascinated with people who build their second companies. And Alex, you're back. I thought you would take
No,
5 minutes.
sorry about that. There was this delivery that was supposed to happen at between 2 and 4 p.m.
Right.
and now it's 7:20 and they're just coming in. So I opened the door for them. I will just give them some instructions. Sorry about that. I was not sure it was live. Actually, I thought it was recorded. So we
Uh,
more flexible.
no worries. Yeah, no worries. I mean, my audience is quite accommodating. Yeah. So my question was, how did you? So you looked at this opportunity in the US, and you thought we could replicate it
Yeah, it
here.
was a bit more complicated than that because the idea I actually had 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Sorry. So I had the idea before there was actually a market, and
Ah, you had the idea beforehand. Okay, got
I
it.
had the idea 10 years ago, and I tried it out. So I did a little mock-up website. I collected
Mm,
some answers, same kind of survey we're doing right now.
right,
And at that time, the market was not ready. People were not really understanding what we were doing. So I
right.
decided to put the project on hold and do some other stuff.
Got it.
And I put it back on the shelf because because it was successful in the US.
Got it. So for you, you said that you are mostly creative. You jump into anything that seems interesting, but I'm sure it has to have a good financial potential, right? A good business potential and a good
Yeah, of
business.
course.
Is
That's also the way I look at projects as an investor.
right.
It has to be exciting, but also the numbers have to be exciting as well.
Got it. And this you are looking at a pan European, or are you looking at international as well?
Right now, it's going to be a European player because
Got it.
there's a lot to do in Europe. The main target will be Northern Europe for the customers,
Right.
and the properties will be mostly Southern Europe, Mediterranean Sea, the Alps, stuff like that.
Got it. So what's the value proposition here? So the value proposition remains the same, right? So you are giving opportunities for people to co-own with strangers,
Yeah,
so that it's easy for you. And there are these beautiful places that you could co-own. That's the value proposition.
yeah. Excuse me once again. I'll be right back.
No, no, no
Oui,
worries.
allô? 19:32. Fond de cours à droite, mais je suis en call, hein, monsieur. Putain, en fond à droite. Sorry about that. Those delivery guys, they drive me crazy.
No, no, no worries. We just keep it normal. Otherwise, it looks heavily edited, and we just keep it
No
normal.
problem.
My question to you is, let's look at the stage of the startup is okay. So, are you putting your own money, or are you raising some money, or how is it?
We are raising money. We're doing a pre-seed fund. Actually, the community of business angel upscalers is going to be part of it.
Ah, nice,
Um, and we're putting a little bit of money just to show that we're
committed.
committed. But
Got it.
where my co-founder is, yeah, doesn't have the same. He did not exit. He was not an entrepreneur. He had a regular job.
Great.
So we're doing 50-50, which
Got
means
it.
we cannot put too much of our own money.
Got it. And okay, so you found a co-founder, and you're looking for pre-seed. And then, what are the early stages before you launch it? Like, do you find a team of developers? Do you hire them? Like, what are those initial steps that you need to take before you launch?
Yeah. So we're doing a soft launch right now, which means we have the website ready. We're starting acquisition. Just people who are typing some stuff on Google, they can find our website. And while we're doing this, we're starting to raise funds, which means at the end of the summer, we will have raised maybe 1.5 million euro, and we're going to be able to do the next step, hire the team, and put the first properties on the market.
Excellent. And then, usually, when you raise a pre-seed, what is the duration of the pre-seed? Like, is this for the next 1 year, or for the next 2 years, or how is it?
Yeah, it's going to be for the next 12 to 18 months, and then and this business, it's not very capital intensive, but still we need to raise a significant amount of money. So there's going to be pre-seed, seed, and Series A probably within 24 to 36 months.
And you said not capital intensive, but you must be sourcing for these properties that are
Yeah,
ready,
but as soon as you sold them, I mean, you buy the properties, but you try to sell them as fast as you can. So it means that the money is
rotating. Got it.
yeah, it's rotating. You don't own the assets.
But after a point of time, you will have to buy a lot of assets because you
Yeah,
need to show it on the website, no?
yeah, yeah. Our competitors in the US, they raised 1.2 billion,
Wow.
200 million in equity and 1 billion in debt. Oui,
Wow.
est-ce que tu peux le
Okay.
mettre au premier étage? Ça va aller.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I work with property tech as well, and I know a bit of property market, and I've seen, you know about iBuyers business.
No, what is that?
iBuyers business are also like that, where you, as a company, you go and buy properties from people, and so that they don't.
My delivery guy is struggling a little bit. Can you just hold on for 1 minute?
No worries. Take your time.
Oh, thank
Okay.
you.
So for the audience here, iBuyer is a business where people, where there are companies, real estate companies, who use their own money to go and buy properties from consumers, from individuals. Say, for example, I am a house owner, and I want to sell my property, and I don't have to go and struggle in the market to sell my property. What I can do is, I go to an iBuyer, and the iBuyer just buys the property. He holds onto the property. He makes the relevant. He buys the property on cash. Okay, he gives you. So within, say, a few days, your property is a few weeks, you're selling your property. That means you don't have to scout and spend a lot of time doing your own research. The iBuyers will do all the hard work for you, and then they will give you a good price. And the business model for them is, they go, and they renovate the house, they increase the value of the house, and they sell it on profit. So there are, so one of the iBuyer players in the US, they suffered massive losses, and hundreds of people were laid off, and they suffered an entire year was a massive loss. So this is again a little tricky in a lot of ways, because if you're buying a property, especially here, as Alex mentioned, as per his business model, he's buying a property and then he is looking for owners, and the idea is to sell this with a good margin to these co-owners. Okay, I don't mind the disturbance at all. uh, what is more important is the rich valuable conversations that we're having.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Now
What
we're good.
what
I'm just gonna close the door and we're gonna be fine. How much longer do you think?
5 more minutes?
5 more minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Cool. No,
Okay.
I was talking about iBuyer. iBuyer is a business model for real estate companies,
Okay.
where what do they do? These players, they buy properties and make the sale process of individual property holders easy. Say, for example, I am a customer and I want to sell my property, so I don't have to look for sellers all over and see and do the research. It's a harrowing experience. It's a very
Yeah.
hard and difficult experience, and it takes months to look for a buyer. So what these iBuyer companies do, they automate their entire process programmatically, and they come and they give you the best deal, and they buy your property within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they renovate the property, they ensure that the value of the property goes up, and they do everything, and then they sell it
Yeah.
with a good margin. That's the iBuyer. So, is your business model based out of selling for X and sorry, buying for X and selling more
No,
than X?
that's a different business model. You know, these people they try to buy a little bit below market value because they buy fast. So it's a very different business model. We buy at market price, but when we resell, there is a service fee. It's not that we're selling the property higher, it's that people, when they want to be part of our community, of course, the villa that they're buying for, let's say, 2 million, since it's 8 people and it takes a lot of effort for us to get the 8 different buyers, we're going to take a premium over that.
Got it.
So it's a kind of service fee. It's not that we are trying to make money out of the property. It's just
Right.
that we offer a service and people, they pay for it.
Excellent. Okay, and there are legalities and everything is taken care of by you.
Yeah, yeah. You know, especially we're targeting a lot of foreign buyers who want to buy in France,
Yes.
and they don't have to care about anything about the tax, the local taxes and stuff like that. We take care of everything, and they
Got
just
it.
enjoy the property.
And there is would they pick from a pool of buyers, or do you do some matchmaking? How does it work out?
Yeah, we're trying to really. The whole idea of the company is to create a community. So
Right.
that's going to be a couple of hundreds of people. And at some point, we want people to meet each other and to create their own little community of 8 people to buy a
Got
house together.
got it.
So sometimes we will buy the house and then the people will come after that. Sometimes we will have the people and we will look for a house for them.
Got it. Excellent. Well, this brings us to the end of a fascinating conversation with Alex. Alex was very, very generous in sharing a lot of his insider information, which usually, especially somebody who's starting up, would not share. But Alex was not like that. Alex was very open and very generous with all the information. Thank you, Alex.
Right.
Thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best. And hopefully, I would be able to also, being part of Upscalers, be part of this journey of yours. All right.
Okay. Thanks so
Thank you
much,
again.
Bobby.
Thank,
Have a good
thank,
day.
thank.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.